Welcome back to Data Center News Asia. And not only am I here flying solo, James is flying. This is a rare take two. If you can only imagine the level of shame that you feel when you record a 13-minute newsreel and then press play before you send it for editing, and it turns out that there's no sound, none at all. So yeah, pretty embarrassing. Luckily, I'm sat here on my own in a co-working space, so only my shame, and now obviously both of the people watching. But there we go. We always tell people when we do the interviews at conferences, hey, we don't want to do this in one take, and that is true. That's why I'm completely aghast at my own dismal performance this morning. But you don't even have to see that. So luckily, I'll launch in with the first story. The first story is probably the biggest proof that James and I are committed to not doing actual journalism and reporting what is in the news, because we both are under fairly strict NDAs with a lot of our clients. So we're not out there investigating, gathering gossip. We do that for our day jobs, but for this news, we are reporting publicly available information. I say that because I'm talking about Microsoft here. So this is the news story as phrased by The Edge. Singapore pulling back on data centers from Chicago to Jakarta. I'm sure, like everyone else in the sector, I've been speaking to over the last couple of weeks and even months, people from partners, vendors, and Microsoft themselves about this subject, but I'll stick to exactly what is in the report. So there's the journalism here comes from a statement made by Microsoft themselves, as well as a report from CD Cowan, and then a follow-up statement from CoreWeave. So I'll put the gist of it together. So they've pulled back on a few gigawatts worth of capacity globally that they had in various stages of agreed or committed, both self-build and lease. That is as far-reaching as they say as Indonesia. Which is our backyard. It doesn't affect the $80 billion that Microsoft are spending capex on new infrastructure, i.e. data center build, in this financial year. So this financial year ends in June, which is in 2 months' time. They have said that the subsequent year, so next year, will probably have a slightly lower capex spend than that, and probably be more focused on fit out equipment, that sort of stuff. It's a big change from the big announcements that have been made. I think anyone who watches the space and sees the relationship, again, just sticking to what was in the press, between Microsoft and OpenAI, would see that there's been shifts in their individual demand. That was the statement from the chap at CoreWeave, was that this is a Microsoft issue, not a global sector change. And again, anytime we see such enormous infrastructure numbers, we're bound to see some of them be slightly dialed back later on. $80 billion is still $5 billion more than the United Kingdom spends on defense. So they're spending more on buildings full of chips and the related power infrastructure than the UK is spending on F-35 fighter jets this year. So yeah, we're not talking small change, and we're not talking a drastic slowdown. Onto the more developing and other data center stories in the region. So Iron Mountain have taken ownership of the Indian data center firm Werks. So this was a joint venture. They've been working together for 4 years in India. They've built a couple of facilities. The portfolio is 6 data centers in 5 markets. It's total capacity of about 14 megawatts. So we're not talking mega big facilities here. When I looked it up, actually, Iron Mountain are in 61 countries worldwide, of which Asia is very, very small portfolio, that only India. But they are mostly in kind of downtown co-location markets. They only actually have a few hundred megawatts, 415 of co-location across those 61 countries. That's 415 megawatts is no, I mean, they are a big operator, but you break that down per country, per data center, it's smaller sites in strategic locations is their model. But yeah, so there's no details on the value of the deal and on what they've paid and what the arrangement was, but Iron Mountain has taken full ownership of the Werks joint venture in India. We're also seeing construction begin on phase 2 of the mega IDC campus in Hong Kong. This is the big building with mega written across it. SUNeVision, the data center brand is iAdvantage. I think they have, I didn't even check DCI for this, sorry James, you're not here, so I'm not plugging DCI. I think they have more than 280 megawatts of capacity, like that includes under development. It's not sure what they've got operational in Hong Kong. In fact, that must be about 100 megawatt less, because the announcement here is phase one is 50 megawatts, and the mega IDC campus will be 180 megawatts. But that's still, if you think Hong Kong's total market size of only just over a gigawatt, this is a pretty substantial market share for iAdvantage and SUNeVision. We've seen pullback and sort of reductions in expectation, including Equinix, as well as a lot of the US hyperscalers in Hong Kong, as the political dynamic has changed there. Whereas SUNeVision, of course, is a locally owned business. They have a blend of local, international, enterprise and hyperscale customers. I think perhaps referring back to some of the earlier discussion on Microsoft's plan changes. Ultimately, if you are building in a hub area where there will be demand from multiple use cases for digital infrastructure, then the outlook remains extremely bullish. It's probably more where you're looking at a single niche use case at an off-piste location where there's more risk attached. Speaking of strategic locations, DCI Data Centers have submitted resubmitted, I should say. So the plans for the data center, which is in Canberra, capital city of Australia, in a place called Jerebombera. I await the DMs from annoyed Australians that I have clearly butchered Jerebombera. I don't know how you would say it. I don't know how you would say that. Frankly, it's a silly word. But this is this is a site that Brookfield announced 2022. It was going to be a 20 megawatt facility at the time, planned to be up and running by last year. That sort of fizzled out. There's some background to that. It's part of this sort of Populous Innovation Precinct, which is like a sort of whatever you call it, like a tech park in the Canberra area. We know, the Australian government and the sort of broader ecosystem, so they're using both Azure and AWS. They have a strong emphasis on government AI facilities in Australia, and there's of course, where there is a centre of government like that, there are naturally various, there's an entire supply chain from defence, education, road building, trade, commerce, etc., and there's all the companies attached to that and with needs to be there. So Canberra is a really strategic location, interesting project for DCI, and let's see if this one, this is by the way from a report from the urban developer, and it's talking about the planning application, so there's not a statement from DCI on this one, so interesting to see what they come out with. NTT have broken ground on and so this one's interesting because it's the NTT Global Data Centers and TEPCO joint venture. So NTT in Japan is, of course, one of Japan's biggest conglomerates and telecommunications giants. They have like 15 or 16 or maybe more data centers across Japan, servicing their customers for as a giant telco in a country with a huge economy. NTT Global Data Centers is a separate brand. It's developing, 1.5 gigawatts in 20 countries around the world. And in Japan, NTT Global Data Centers, NTTGC, has a joint venture with TEPCO, which is the Tokyo Electric Power Company, logical strategic partner. And this is the 50 megawatt development in Inzai Shiroi area, which is the popular area for both cloud and data center providers. So yeah, groundbreaking here, classic Japanese affair with the Shinto priest and get the picture up on the screen. Congratulations to the team. Sustainability news, I love a bit of this. Well, actually, let's do AirTrunk finance news first. So AirTrunk is seeking a $2.2 billion loan. This is to build their this is a green loan, so this is still sustainability. Yay, we'll stick with that. AirTrunk. The press now are referring to them as Blackstone-owned data center firm AirTrunk. That's a new a new mouthful I have to get used to. But Blackstone-owned data center firm AirTrunk are seeking 2.2 billion Sing dollars. Sorry, I should be clear because AirTrunk reports in Australian dollars, and of course US dollars is what most people are talking. So 2.2 Sing, which is, I didn't even check, there's US like 1.8 or something. This is to fund their greenfield data center campus build out in Singapore, which would be the one that they won the share of in the CFA last year. So that was the Singapore government's award for new capacity. So yeah, there's still mixed responses in the media about the location for that facility. But yeah, what I wanted to talk about actually in terms of AirTrunk and sustainability was, this is more exciting to me, was AirTrunk's announcement with Johor Special Water. So we talk a lot from a sustainability angle. We're almost always talking power with data centers. They are extremely power hungry beasts. Data centers, as a result, the power consumption is their scope 3, but they also produce large amounts of emissions in scope 2 in the forms of their construction material costs, and scope 1, I guess, in diesel generation, but that's pretty minor relatively. But yes, data centers are often talked about in their sustainability impact from a power standpoint, producing and using enormous amounts of power, and we see lots and lots of data center companies spearheaded by the US hyperscalers getting into renewable power and trying to clean up that part of their value chain. Water is something we don't see, frankly, discussed enough. There was a couple of studies that Amazon commissioned over the last 2 years. Google, I think, has been probably a bit more transparent than the other hyperscalers. Still, it's difficult because there's not any obligation on these companies, and they are listed companies. Their job is to create shareholder value. So there is not an obligation on them to report this, so they are still going above and beyond what they're required to do. But Google has a water stewardship program, just as an example. So this would be a target similar to a net zero target. So the idea is, when data centers are using water, the challenge isn't so much using water. To an idiot like me, 66% of the planet's surface is covered in water. What's the problem? The issue is using potable water, which is drinking water, which is much rarer and requires more processing, and many areas of the world are short in potable water. So Google has a goal to replenish 120% of its freshwater consumption across the data centers and offices by 2030. There's a deal they signed recently in Taiwan with a company called NDRIP, and AirTrunk, never far behind the hyperscale customers on this, has launched this initiative with Johor Special Water, which will supply JHB1 and JHB2, the AirTrunk campuses in Johor, with recycled water, which is kind of like unused wastewater. You can speculate on where that comes from, and that can be used, if treated properly, it can be used as part of the cooling process and without wasting potable water. So it's a really interesting area, very important, good stuff. Congratulations to all those involved. Love a good sustainability story. Other sustainability story as well, kudos to Digital Realty, who achieved 100% renewable coverage in Singapore. So they've recently signed an agreement with Tuas Power, which is one of the big Singaporean power generation firms, and they have a biogas facility. So the offtake from this biogas facility will, should, in addition to the other agreements that Digital Realty had in place, match 100% of the power load of their data centers in renewable tokens. Again, very important because of the cost of developing these projects, and so having a off-taker and demand creates the demand for more of these power projects. And the idea would be that you can overbuild them versus the capacity, and carbon neutrality is the end result. I will stop there because it's almost 15 minutes. I wish you all a happy Friday, and you will next see us on the road. Not even on the road in Singapore. James and I will be at GITEX later this month, which is the Dubai World Trade event. Very exciting to be partnering with those guys. Looked forward to meeting our friends and colleagues from the Middle East at GITEX. Cheers.